Greetings, Earthlings! Welcome to the Real Friends in Football podcast. Today, I have two of my favorite people, and the only reason why they're my favorite, I actually hate them, but they are very good clickbait people, so they're my favorite clickbaiters. And today we have Anthony and Hack together. We are doing a tier list for the post-NFL draft tier list. So right before the preseason's getting started, we're recording May 24th. So let's get into this. We're going to go, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then at the end, hopefully we can have a congregate ranking at the end. Any words before we get started?
If I'm a clickbait, it's just because I'm right and people don't like to be wrong. So they hate me.
And what's your saying, Anthony?
I'm a truth broker. Okay. I'm not here to upset anybody. I just want people to have the truth. But I will proudly wear the hat as RFF villain because apparently I'm just too honest.
All right, well, let's get started on this ranking. So first of all, we're going to go the Cardinals, and I'm gonna give this to Anthony because he's the newest member of the podcast, I guess, or whatever you want to call yourself.
Contributor?
I got angry when I said member.
Rotating analyst.
Yeah.
Just like I wasn't a brunch boy, I'm not a real RFF guy. I'm just, here for clout.
Yeah, right. So,
look, I'm gonna say what I'm gonna say, and part of the division, part of the conversation division, but I think it's a drink the Kool-Aid. Kyler is healthy. I think that's a big boon. Marvin is going to be awesome, but that roster needs help. The defensive pieces, aren't what they used to be, right? There's been a lot of attrition, and I think they still have a year, I believe, of bleeding off some old bad contracts. Not to mention, if you want to go into the ratings of, how the NFLPA does the scorecard of teams and owners, Arizona's regularly like at the bottom of that, right? Facilities, management, all that. I hope not, right? Because I don't ever want to mess up anybody's money or anything, but because of the contract and because of where the team is at, and remember, they're in a division with the Seahawks, which, okay, who knows what they're going to do. Niners and a healthy Matt Stafford, right? Cooper Kupp's healthy. Puka Nacua came on last year. You're punching up in that division. And so that could be a division where, regardless of how Kyler looks this year, are we talking about them trading Kyler for picks so they can reset and be competitive in a pretty well-run division? So that's where I'm at. I'm open to debate. I could see them at the end of the wild card or wild boys thing that we've, attributed. But beyond that, I just think it's a drink the Kool-Aid because they ain't there yet.
Yeah. All right, Hack, I'm going to give you the Atlanta Falcons because this is your new favorite team post-Cowboys era. So yes. Atlanta Falcons, where are you placing them?
Yeah, I've already drunk the Kool-Aid, so we're going to move them to wild boys. I think right now they should be the favorite in this division. I don't really see any reason why they shouldn't control their destiny to get into the playoffs, but I know some people still like the Saints and their defense. I know you can even maybe throw Tampa in there, but I think with the addition of Kirk Cousins, and then as clowned as they were for drafting Penix, if something happens to him, they have, at least a quarterback with some level of talent and potential there. With a very good offensive roster, and I think a pretty strong defense as well. And so I think, obviously, their biggest issue last season was quarterback, and I think they addressed it very well this offseason, so I see nothing but positive for them.
All right. You're going to love when you see my Penix take, I think you're going to like it.
Yeah. That's my next clip for you, actually. I was working on that one a little bit last night. So I have the Baltimore Ravens. I think this is by far the most competitive division in the NFL. We got the Steelers, we got the Bengals, we got the Browns. This could be a mix of anything next year. And I feel like all these teams have very good defenses. They're very competitive. And I feel as if the Ravens, they had their spot last year. They didn't do it. I'm talking them in a negative tone, but I still have them ranked very highly. But they lost their defensive coordinator and everything. And like I said, I feel like now the Steelers, they got two quarterbacks to juggle around. We got Joe Burrow coming back, and we just don't know how this division is going to pan out. Like, we think that the Ravens are going to win the division, but we don't know for sure. And so with all that being said, with how difficult the season's going to be for them, I'm going to give them coffee is for closers, and that's where I'm placing them for now.
I do want to point out, though, the Ravens are perennially that team where the Eagles, we talk about the Eagles, oh, they draft well, but, does it really work out? The Ravens are constantly the team in the first through third round where we just let guys fall to them, right?
Oh, yeah.
People let Kyle Hamilton out of Notre Dame fall to him thinking, oh, maybe he's not good. He was a top 15 talent. Now he's on his way to being all pro at safety. So a talented team, and it's kind of disgusting what they continue to be able to do.
All right, so you got the Buffalo Bills.
I'm going to put them behind the Ravens and coffees for closers. This is going to be interesting because Tua, although in the Dolphins and McDaniels, proved that once they could get the ground running or get the ground under them, they could really run, right? They put up a 70 burger on the team, or maybe it was a 60 burger. But Aaron Rodgers is healthy. The Patriots, while I don't think they're super talented, there's going to be some new life breathed into there by the new coaching staff. The Bills kind of had their chance for a few years to try and topple the Chiefs, right? Get that seeding, and the Chiefs were vulnerable. The Bengals were out, and they didn't do it. It's their, I stand by it. I don't think Sean McDermott should be the head coach of the Buffalo Bills. He's the same guy who started Nathan Peterman and thought that was a good idea. I don't care how long ago that was. That is, F tier for me all time. It is. I can never forgive him for making me watch that. So
that's 5 interceptions in one quarter or something like that. One half. All right.
I could do that.
Hey, well, we don't even know if you can get the ball in the air. So, all right.
Oh.
All right. Hack, you got the Carolina Panthers. You just recently traded for Bryce Young in Dynasty football. So,
yeah, and I'm actually going to the Falcons at Panthers game in October. So, I'm excited. I got both these two teams on this. So, I'm going to go drink the Kool-Aid. One, because that's also another team.
Behind or?
Yeah, behind.
Okay.
I know that they've made improvements to their offensive line, but good Lord, their offensive line was so bad that there's no way they could have done anything on offense. Like, you could be the best quarterback to ever play the game, and there will never be another quarterback better in the future of the NFL, and you would still have the same impact that Bryce Young had, because there was just no time, no ability, no weapons. So I think they've improved their line. They've improved their weapons. It's just a matter of how much improved is it.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to clarify for the viewers. We don't think Quinn Ewers is going to be the number one pick next year. We're just saying that that's a cute name for the bottom of the tier. But I want to point out that the Panthers can't even you for Ewers because they don't even own their own draft pick next year. So you have to drink the Kool-Aid because you gotta hope something happens, right? Like clip that, Blazing, clip that.
Yeah, and that was the other thing too. Is whenever I was debating, it was going to be one of the two. It was like either drink the Kool-Aid, kind of lower end, or high end of you for Ewers, just because of that fact is why I'm putting them up. I think they haven't managed their situation well. I think they put themselves in a bad situation, but at this point you have to drink the Kool-Aid. You have to hope it works out because you have no other option right now.
Yeah.
For the near future.
If you don't drink the Kool-Aid, the owner's going to throw it on you. Hats off to him, by the way. Hats off to him, by the way. Clip that.
I was listening to like a gambling podcast, and the Carolina Panthers' original win total line was at 4.5, and it got moved up to 5.5 because there are a lot of sharp gamblers that do like the Panthers this year with their additions. You got like a should-be refresh Bryce Young. They were kind of comparing it a little bit to the Jags situation with Trevor Lawrence's first year, how that was just a combust of a season, and now they got new coach, all that kind of stuff, and so Yeah, I think drink the Kool-Aid is a fair placement for them. So I have the Chicago Bears, a team that I'm very near and dear to my heart. They're probably the Falcons of hacks. And I'm very hot on the Bears this year. To me, it's really up to what Caleb Williams can be in the NFL. Obviously, I'm a huge Justin Fields fan, so it hurt my heart. I don't know. What is this?
That take makes me not happy.
Oh, you don't.
It says not happy, and then you could flip it in the.
Okay, happy.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm like, I just see a banana. That's it. Anyways, I think.
I can't read.
Yeah, I think the Bears have done a lot. They've had 3 years of being, well, even more than 3 years, I guess, and that's probably Anthony's take, right? But they've had 3 years of a horrible season. They've had good draft picks. They trade-ard the Panthers with the Bryce Young trade. They have top 5 probably receiving core now. Finally, been waiting for this for forever. Their offensive line is now built up. They traded for Montez Sweat on defense. The secondary is probably top 3, top 5. Secondary is amazing. The defense is put together now, and it really just relies on the back of Caleb Williams. Can Caleb Williams get adapted into the NFL very quickly? Is he going to win Rookie of the Year? If he does, I think this team should be a wild card team. So I'm going to put them at the Wild Boys, right behind the Falcons.
I think this division is going to be interesting, right? Nobody expected the Vikings to lose Kirk, not that way, right? And who knows what Sam Darnold and McCarthy are going to put together. The Packers caught lightning in a bottle last year, and really curious to see if they can keep that momentum. And Lions are red hot, man. Like, when's the last time? I was 3 or 4 years old the last time we talked about the Lions being, a competitive team that kind of ran that division, other than a year or two with Matthew Stafford back in the day. So it's interesting now. I think, let's put it out there. I think a successful year for Caleb Williams is around 3,500 yards, around 30 touchdowns, and keeping the interception ratio less than 2-1, right? So if he throws 28 touchdowns and 9 interceptions, let's talk about it. Like, that's a good year, guys, right? And that division in the cold and everything like that, if they're 9 and 8 or whatever the number is, right? Like, to me, that's a positive year. I'm not saying they can't make the wild card, but even if they get that far, we shouldn't be dogging on them for being a bad team or mismanaging. Like, that's a successful year coming from where they've been.
Yeah, I kind of was saying, I feel like the Bears, their team outside of quarterback is all win now, pretty much, to me. If you place a top 10 quarterback on that team, I think we could be talking about a Super Bowl team. The Bears are now built to win. They're built to win. And
okay, now you lost me. You had to say Super Bowl.
They are.
You hear
okay.
That?
All right.
You hear that?
You put Jared Goff on the Bears. I think they're like an 11-win team.
And they still play outdoors. They're in a tough division, and it's a team that,
the Lions
win now. But we haven't seen these pieces put together. Okay, let me remind you of the Nnamdi Asomugha Philadelphia Eagles. They had all the pieces. They didn't put it together, man.
Okay, yeah. I mean, the coaching for sure is in question. I mean, Eberflus's job was on the line. But I'm saying in the sense of a roster, they have a lot of good pieces now on their team. That's what I'm trying to say. I
can't believe I had to call you out for the Super Bowl take. I was waiting for someone else to do it.
I mean, to be fair, he's not saying that Super Bowl is like the reality or the realistic choice, but to say that it's not out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah. That's kind of
what stretch,
right. That's what I was talking about.
I'm testing both of y'all for Kool-Aid now.
In the last podcast, we were talking about Kirk Cousins, and to where I saw a world to where the Falcons could be a Super Bowl team, and that's kind of where I'm placing the Bears. Right, like we've seen it. Nick Wright was talking about how he thinks that the Bears should win the NFC or can win the NFC. We had a team like the Texans last year with C.J. Stroud, rookie quarterback, come in and start ruling the league, and I feel the Bears.
Isn't Nick Wright the same guy who crowned Trevor Lawrence the Prince
right.
and is riding him all the time? I don't know about that take, man. I'm kind of second guessing. Like, he's ridden the Chiefs, cool win, but
yeah,
he's real hard for Trevor Lawrence, and I can't get behind that.
All right, so what do we got next? We have Bengals. Who has this one? Oh,
Anthony
is this?
So I'm going to put the Bengals behind, or sorry. I wish I could like put two teams on top of each other, right? Because they're very much like the Ravens. Put them behind the Ravens.
Yeah.
I'll say this: the Ravens have a better roster, right? They're not losing pieces. The Bengals are losing pieces. They've lost pieces. They're trying to make room for Jamar Chase's contract. Who knows what's going to happen with Higgins and some of these other players? And they've lost a couple defensive pieces, which was critical for their Super Bowl run. And just like the Ravens, quarterback needs to stay healthy. Unlike Buffalo, that it's less of a roller coaster when the quarterback's starting. One thing that is true about Josh Allen, or at least the Josh Allen led by Sean McDermott, is there's some highs and some lows, right? There's not a lot of games where they're, oh, okay, they snuck one by. It's, damn, they were good, or where the hell did that come from in a bad way, right? But, I think this is going to be an interesting year. I think they've got some interesting pieces, and I think it's a chance for the Bengals to run a more. This is the first chance, I think, to run a more balanced offense, and hopefully the defensive pieces that they've picked up come up quickly and help them get across the door. But just because they were in the Super Bowl a few years ago, there's been enough go wrong that I just can't put them in the essence for Super Bowl, right? They're not a team that we look at and say guaranteed to go to the Super Bowl or really good odds to go to the Super Bowl, right? There's still some questions.
All right, so we got the Cleveland Browns for Hack.
Thank God I don't have this.
To me, honestly, I don't know what to do with them. I feel like I have to put them in Wild Boys. And we'll put them at the bottom.
Okay.
I just think.
Oh wow.
I think as far as this division goes, I think it's just maybe not the bottom. We'll leave them there for right now. I just don't see a world in which they can win the division. And so I think they have to be. Oh, well, I guess there's a world in which they can. I don't think they will. Which then leaves me thinking they have to fight for a wild card spot.
Mm-hmm.
I think if a team pulls away with it, the Bengals or the Ravens are going to run away with that division. And if it gets into a sneaky, battle, it's the Ravens will probably win it, and some random team like Pittsburgh or the Cleveland Browns will sneak into the wild card. But I don't think the Browns are a team that I'm looking at like, oh, I think they have a chance to run away with that division.
No, for sure, and that's why I say they can win it, but I don't think they will. I don't know. Like, they're a tough team. I like the way that they fight, but it's just like at the end of the day, they're almost like coffee is for closers for their division for the way that they've been. I mean, really, for a long time, they were the disgusting team in the league.
Mm-hmm.
But now they've kind of fought back and they have a respectable position in the league, but it's just like not, to me, they're never going to quite get there.
I definitely think this is a team that could use a little massaging to smooth out the rough parts of its game. But I think the big one is I wasn't sure why Joe Flacco didn't return, but then I realized that the last thing they want with a $400 million quarterback is for them to go 1-2 or something like that, and all of a sudden the chance for Flacco keep going. And I hope y'all caught that massage comment earlier. That was for y'all.
All right, so I got the Dallas Cowboys, and I'm trying not to be too much of a homer here because I'm not too excited about our season this year, but I'm trying to properly rank that. I don't think I'm gonna do anything crazy, but it's really hard because last year I really believe that we were kind of like having our run, and the Packers just completely ruined us. We're losing Dan Quinn, which is huge. We lose Tony Pollard. We get Zeke back. We don't really have a great running back. We lost Tyron Smith. It's tough. It's really tough. I feel like we definitely. The division helps us a lot because I think it's going to be neck and neck between us and the Eagles, at least hypothetically, going into the season. And so I think I'm going to put us behind the Bills, which for those who know me, I'm a glorified Bills hater. And still, I mean, they beat us last season, so it's hard for me to even place them over them. So I think the Bills at least have a higher ceiling. You put Josh Allen in that playoff mode, and maybe he can just completely carry the team. And I feel even if the Cowboys went like 14-3 this season, which I'm not saying they are, but if they went 14-3, I don't know if you can go into the playoffs feeling excited, or if there's always going to be that haunting behind us. So that's where I have us.
I think this is a team that really needs to get the contracts figured out. They don't need to see with Brandon Cooks being the elder statesman slash leading target without CD there. They need Dak there. They need Dak healthy in camp and participating, and they need CD there getting touches, right? So they can figure out what they're going to be. Um, hopefully Zeke. This is going to be the first time in a while that I think the Cowboys are truly going to do a running backs by committee
Yeah.
situation. And then I'll admit I'm curious to see. Diggs needs to come back healthy, and him and Bland are going to be. I'm worried that secondary is going to be very boom or bust, right? Those are guys that are hyper talented and like to attack the ball, right? Look how many picks those two have between them.
Mm-hmm.
But it's they. Best way I can put it is they don't both need to be going for broke on the same play, right? They've got to have a way to. They need to have a way to signal each other so that there's always coverage on the back end.
Yeah, I think Diggs has channeled that a little bit since his start in the NFL. So
Right.
we got Denver Broncos. This is going to go to Anthony then. Where are you placing them?
I am going to put them behind ahead of the Panthers, and I'm going to say this for a couple of reasons. While I think they're the third best team in the conference, right? I think the Raiders are probably the fourth in that division. The Chargers and the Chiefs and the rest of the AFC are going to be hard out, right? The other one is they are kind of depleted of talent from the Russell Wilson and Sean Payton trades and other things they have to do that. They cut a safety this year that was Justin Simmons, I believe, that he wasn't cut for performance. He was cut because they didn't have money,
Mm-hmm.
right? They didn't have cap space, which is not what you want to do. And so while I think Bonix is talented and can run Sean's offense, when we talk about guys like Tim Patrick and Cortland Sutton, people are like, oh, these guys are talented receivers. Since when? Okay, they've had about 1,000 yards, and they were like high names coming out of the draft, coming into college. But when has either of those guys really shown that they're a guy, right? I hate, Jerry Judy's not there anymore, but when they were beefing about being called Jags, right, just a guy. Um, the Broncos' talent is something that I've never quite understood of, like why we were overhyping this talent, right?
Yeah.
John Elway was a terrible drafter, right? Just like from Paxton Lynch down, right? He got Peyton Manning, caught lightning in a bottle, spent I believe like $200 million in free agency, and stole a Super Bowl out, right? But beyond that, it's really not that great run of a team. There's a transition as you go to the Walton team, and it's kind of like Broncos country. Let's ride it out for a year.
All right, so Hack, you got the Detroit Lions. I'm curious to see what you do here because I think you might do something not crazy, but you might do something I think you might do.
I'm putting them between the Ravens and the Bengals.
Okay, so you didn't do that.
What did you think I
I
was
thought
going to
you
do?
were going for the S.
No, only reason is I think they haven't done it. They just haven't been a good organization for so long that now they're here. What are they going to do with that?
Mm-hmm.
And so I just want to see it.
So what you're saying
as
is, what's it going to be like to be the hunted?
basically,
Okay.
I mean, as the season progressed last year, I think they got smarter in how to utilize all of their weapons. Right, like that was the biggest criticism, kind of going the first half of the season or whatever. And then they started to figure it out and they made their run. And obviously in the playoffs it gets difficult and you have to play the better teams and all of that. And so it's just what can they do to get over the hump? Because certainly as it stands now, they have to get past the 49ers. So how would they be able to do that? How would they be able to get past maybe even the Cowboys, maybe the Eagles, maybe like just some of these other teams that are right there with them? But I really like what they have.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I think they're the epitome of football. I think their coach is the epitome of what it is to be a football coach and a football player.
Yeah. So I got the Green Bay Packers. I've made a decent opinion about them recently. I just think that the second half of the season was more of an outlier, and it's not exactly of what I think that team is capable of doing. I feel like a lot of people are already touting Jordan Love as his top 10 quarterback. I'm not ready to do anything like that. And let's remember, this is a guy right here that was hot on Jordan Love like at the beginning, right? I never really doubted him, and when he came in for his little stints for Rodgers, I said, "Oh, this guy's talented. Like he's got a lot going for him." But I'm not ready to say, "Oh, he's a glorified top 10 guy already," because we really only saw about 9 games out of him to where he went kind of crazy. So I see regression coming from this team, very young team. They don't have a super talented receiving core or team in general. They did get Josh Jacobs, which is good. They have good coaching. I'm going to place them right behind the Bears, Chicago Bears. I think the Bears are a better team than them, and I think they'll probably go third in that division, and I don't know if that means that they're going to make the playoffs or not. So that's where I have the Green Bay Packers.
I think that's a hot take.
I don't think it is. Do you think it's a hot take, Heck?
Like, Anthony, you would have them lower or higher?
I think I'd have them right behind the Falcons, and I know that's getting nitpicky, but I think there's something to be said of along the lines of they've been there, they've done that. Caleb Williams still has to figure out how to be an NFL quarterback. That team, with all new pieces, has to figure out how to get to the playoffs. There's something to be said for that, and I don't think they're the most talented team, but Green Bay has, had some decent pickups. Their receivers last year looked a lot better with Love than they ever did with old boy Aaron Rodgers, right? And so I'm nitpicking at this point, but they're kind of in that they are in that wild card talk, right? But it's I think they deserve a little more respect, and someone's drinking the Caleb Williams Kool-Aid a little heavier than they should.
I don't think I'm a Caleb Williams Kool-Aid drinker. I've had my doubts on him.
That's Justin Fields. But
okay,
yeah.
All right. Well, anyways, I will say that the sports books have these two teams pretty much tied. Like to win the division, I think they're about the same odds. So I think I'm on one side of the coin, you're on one side of the coin. If it were you, Hack, like what would you do? Do you think the Bears or the Packers are a better team?
I think I would agree that the Packers are the better team. I think the Bears have the more hype around them, and so I think that naturally creates a bias when you're ranking. Not for you specifically, just like anyone in general.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, like Jordan Love wasn't consistently good the whole season last year, and so I think it's just a matter of, and okay, cool, he wasn't consistent the whole season. Well, Caleb Williams hasn't even played a single snap in the NFL. So I kind of think the arguments for and against both are like pretty similar.
Yeah.
I think it's just the Bears are coming off of being really bad, and so what can they do with the potential to be really good versus I trust the Packers organization a little bit more to do what they need to do with the weapons and the team that they have.
I think my debate with the Packers is that it's less of a jump for them to be a last year they snuck into the playoffs. I wouldn't be surprised if most of this year were like, okay, I feel like they're going to make the playoffs. It's a much bigger leap for the Bears to make that leap. And I say this as a Texans fan, where I had no idea what CJ Stroud and that team were going to do last year, right? But I couldn't have, in good faith last year, thought we were going to fucking hurdle the Jags, right? And I can't stand Trevor Lawrence. So that's where it is from a team that's done it before. But you know what? Just like the Jags, the Packers could fall off. So I will rescind my veto.
Yeah, I mean, I really think it's pretty coin flippy, honestly, and I think that's what kind of I see it from a sportsbook's mind, but I'm pretty sure they're pretty close to each other. So I don't think I'm like that far off. And like you said, I think if you were to replace the Packers, you would only put them one spot higher. So I don't think it's like insane. So we have the Texans, and we got the glorified Houston Texans fan ranking them. So what do we got for you?
All right, let's do this. Texans, S tier. DeMeco Ryans is the next Bill Cowher. No, you're going to clip that, and you're going to post nothing of what I said next. No. So watching the way this is breaking out, right, and the way we're talking about divisions, I want to put them at the top of Wild Boys, but Let me dog on the AFC South real quick. I like the talent of the Colts, but Anthony Richardson is just coming back, right? And they got to figure out what that offense looks like. Him, they had to reload. I love Shane Steichen. I actually think he was a big part of Philadelphia's success. Um, your boy Nick Wright's, favorite quarterback or second favorite quarterback, Trevor Lawrence. I don't believe in him, and not from the standpoint of, you know what, if you pay him $45 million, 48, great, but he is. People tout him in this, and for those of you who didn't hear the last podcast, I hate the term generational quarterback because the generation is 20 to 25 years. Once every 20 to 25 years, one of these guys is supposed to come out. And to me, it's been really Elway, Manning, Andrew Luck, really, as far as like what they've been able to do, right? Coming into teams that were ass and turn them into something. All these other guys, it's Trevor Lawrence, Caleb Williams. No, they're really talented guys, but we got to stop on the, Sam Bradford at one point was a generational talent, right? Trevor Lawrence ain't that. He is, and if anybody else has heard this take, Trevor Lawrence is white Jameis Winston. Okay. He's Jameis Winston with long hair and who needs a Head and Shoulders commercial. Okay. That's it. He turns over the ball a lot, right? He might not throw 30 picks, but he'll throw 17 interceptions and fumble the ball 7 or 8 times, right? That ain't great either. And I'll say it again. There's not a team that I look at. Sorry, there's not a game where I look at and it's like, oh, they won because of, Trevor Lawrence, really being gutsy. He might put him in a hole and then he gets credit for digging him out because he's the one who put him there. But, and then the Titans are in rebuild. Some commenters have said they'll surprise me. I am ready to be surprised, but
some RFF commenters.
Yeah, some casuals is from what I can tell, but
we're not allowed to say that word. It's banned.
Derogatory.
Yeah, casuals is like
all right. So
a cuss
some
word,
people
basically.
who aren't
right.
Oh, it is casual.
I called my friend a casual in the group text, and let's just say I'm not in the text anymore. So.
Oh, that's all I had to do?
Yeah, you just called
someone. That's all. I've been trying to get out of that group chat for years.
Yeah. After this pod, you say, I can't believe you put the Bears and the Wild Boys, you fucking casual.
You
and I'll never add you again, yep.
No, but, the Titans, they turned around from Vrabel, and I think, Callahan's a great coach. He's got his dad running the O-line. That's a great storyline. But I just don't think Will Levis is it, right? It's starting to seem more and more like you've got C.J. Stroud, you've got the Jags, and then you've got who knows what Anthony Richardson's going to be. Jags are probably going to give Trevor Lawrence a contract. That's fine. I kind of hope they do, and I hope they pay him $65 million a year. But the Titans, to everybody arguing against me, what team has ever looked up and said, we have the 4th best quarterback or 4th best prospect at quarterback in our division and said, yeah, let's roll with that guy again when we only have one more controlled year after him, right? Because he's on a second-round contract. If he plays next year, he gets to renegotiate. Not saying I don't know who they would pick this year. They could go after like a Kirk Cousins if there's a trade available or something like that. But for that reason, I'm putting the Texans. I'm actually going to put them ahead of the Cowboys in Coffees for closers. And the reason being, they've been there. That now it's just 1 year. But unlike the Cowboys, they understand what all in means. I just want to
what are you talking about? What's Zeke? We got Zeke.
Yeah,
it's like
unless you built a Doctor Who time machine and went and got him from 20. Unless you built a time machine and got 2019 Zeke, I didn't want to hear about it.
We traded back and got 2 starting offensive linemen. I don't know what you're talking about.
You should have traded back in time to 1992. Okay, that's what the Cowboys should have done. Clip that for me. But they've added pieces. There's still talks about us getting guys like Xavier out of Miami, the safety, and then we've got some cap space. Let's see what they do. But they've got pieces. They've invested. This will be a very nut up or shut up year for Houston, right? Because If they don't, who knows? And they let the Jags or the Colts back in the conversation. It's a competitive division. This is their year to kind of put their stamp on things. But I will say my concern is they had a very easy strength of schedule last year between injuries, injured quarterbacks, and who they had to play. But I'm going to have more faith in them than I did last year. I'm sorry, Houston. I was ye of little faith last year.
Yeah.
I repent. I
All right.
repent, Houston.
Hack, you got the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, I just want to say real quick, I think it's interesting that the Texans finally have a good season, and then they're all of a sudden better than all these other teams. But we'll see. We'll see how the season plays out.
It's fair. Oh, hold on. The AFC South is right up there with the NFC South as being a shit show.
No, it really is. I'm gonna put the Colts probably last on above the Browns on Wild Boys only because of division. Um, Anthony pretty much already said everything that needs to be said about the Colts. Who knows what Anthony Richardson will be this year coming back off of his injury? There were definitely a lot of flashes and a lot of high points, a lot of things to build off of, a lot of things to be happy about. But again, you got to put a full season together and see a full body of work before you can really make a determination on this team. They have a lot of promise, though, considering they were one game shy of making the playoffs. So if they can stay healthy, then certainly playoffs is within their reach. Now you're also competing with other teams that are getting better. You're competing with, the Bengals, who they missed out on the playoffs with by one game, and they're getting Joe Burrow back. So like you have some of these other teams that the Colts are in the mix because of injuries and just kind of how the season played out in the AFC. So there's a chance they actually take a step back in terms of record, but because of the division, because of just the AFC and how it's always so packed right there in the middle. There's no reason they shouldn't be at least a game or two in that wild card spot.
All right, so I got the Jacksonville Jaguars. First of all, I have to ask Anthony, where do you think I'm going to place them? Because I already have it in my mind.
Probably ahead of the Colts, just slightly.
Jacksonville Jaguars at the end of the Wild Boys, baby. Third best team in the AFC South. Yeah, I mean, I like what the Colts are doing a lot more than I feel like the Jaguars. I feel like the Jags have been overhyped. They're kind of the secondary Bills team for me. I didn't really understand all the hype. What was like last year, everyone was saying, oh, they're 100% going to win this division, and they got the best quarterback by far, blah, blah, blah. And I feel like the Colts played toe-to-toe with them. Now they get their quarterback back. I like Shane Steichen a lot. I like their receiving weapons, and I think the Jags are a mediocre team. I think they're 9-8, 8-9, around there. And I kind of agree with Anthony to where, I'm not as hot on Trevor Lawrence as some other media members are. I think he's closer to the top, 15 to 12 range, and that's where he should be right now. And, we also talk about a team, and I know Anthony likes to talk about this, but the Jaguars have never had a history of being very good either. And I know they're building like a new stadium and all that kind of stuff, but yeah, I just think they're a very average team. So,
I mean, they're the most likely team to be shipped off to another country. Okay?
Yeah,
so
the London Jags are falling down.
I want to point out two things that I noticed in that take. First of all is that I welcome you as a convert to the Church of Anthony as far as quarterback takes. Thank you. It took a full year for you to see the light, but I'm glad. And then the second one is that you said other media.
Whoa,
and yeah, sorry, that's tomorrow. No, but what's it called? You referred to other media as if you are now officially part of the media. So I just want to congratulate my friend Alex on officially becoming part of the NFL media.
Yeah, well, kind of him.
Senior Bowl.
Yeah.
All right, so Anthony,
your takes are kind of a casual take, but
you got a. Hey.
That's a kick podcast.
Yeah.
Thank you. You know what? I've talked so much already. I ain't got to talk about this one. Chiefs S tier, right? I've already stolen so much wind out of this, and I apologize, guys. I'm a yapper. Chiefs are going for something that hasn't been done ever, right? Three-peat. Who knows? They were vulnerable last year, right? Kadarius Toney was on that team and expected to make a contribution, and the only contribution he did is like one big play and a bunch of yapping. Okay, like most of Alex's exes, actually, now that I think about it. But anyways, I don't even know where that
Clip
came from. That doesn't make
Yeah.
any sense.
I was like,
That was just shade. That was shade for no reason at all. But they're going for something that hasn't been done before. I will add the reservations of I really like Jim Harbaugh and what he's capable of doing. I think his offense is going to be interesting because
don't lure Hack anywhere.
huh?
Don't lure.
I can already tell he's going to disagree with what I do next.
Yeah.
Well, I can't stand Greg Roman, but Greg Roman is great with offensive lines. That's why he was great with Lamar, but he's not a great offensive mind. I like what Jim Harbaugh is going to do. That division is going to be tougher. The Bengals are going to be back. The Chiefs already had the target on their back, right, for everybody. So it's not like they have to deal with that for the first time. I just think it's kind of scary that last year was their perceived down year or perceived vulnerable year, and they still won the fucking Super Bowl, right? Pardon my language, but it was like they still did it, right? And Mahomes was great, and Andy Reid was a great schemer. And I'll say this, and I said this on the last pod, something they have from a consistency standpoint that other teams don't have is consistency from the standpoint of Andy Reid's not going anywhere. Mahomes isn't going anywhere. And what a lot of people don't realize is Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator, I think he's at an age where he's happy being a DC. He's not in the, rumor mill for head coaching jobs. So you're saying you've got a Super Bowl winning head coach, defensive coordinator, quarterback, and all these pieces that are going to return for the next 3, 4, 5 years. That's terrifying, right? When's the last time that happened? It was the freaking Patriots. And that sucks, right? That sucks for everybody else. So that's my thoughts on the Chiefs.
Yeah. Hack, so you got the Los Angeles Chargers.
So I'm going to put them I'm going to put them at the top of one of these rows. Which do you think it is?
I mean, I would hope you would say Wild Boys.
I think he's going to put them at the top of
Kool-Aid. Are you going to do Kool-Aid?
I'm doing top of Kool-Aid.
Oh, wow.
And
that is a take.
Now hear me out. So the Chargers can be very good this year. To which point, yeah, maybe I should put them in the Wild Boys. However, how many times do I have to hear Justin Herbert hyped up for him to underachieve? And I know that that's a team thing, and there's a lot of things kind of going that has happened in that organization that's held him back. But I just, there's so much that's been revamped that I think it has to go into drink the Kool-Aid. Like Jim Harbaugh coming back and taking over this team, a lot of hype, a lot of possibility. I think he will succeed, but let's just see it first.
Also, they spent the entire offseason clearing cap space, right?
Yeah.
That's not the precipice for a team that's, about to break out. I'm not saying they didn't hire Jim Harbaugh to win this year, although there's expectations. They did it for the next 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, and I think there's hype in Lad McConkey's getting a ton of hype and great value in that draft pick and where they got him and just what people have seen and what people expect. So I think there's a lot of things revamping this wide receiver group because it was just horrible.
It's definitely still bad.
Yeah, but it was just so bad. And so to at least see some form of revamping happen, I just think they're not there yet.
Yeah.
So while they can be good, it's just everything's new this year. Let's just continue to build. I like the direction that they're heading. I think they've made some good decisions. But right now it's just Kool-Aid, and hopefully in 2-3 years they're right back up there.
I will say with
Drinking
the Justin
coffee
Herbert
instead.
take,
Yeah,
I think what's interesting is I think the Chargers can get better this year without Herbert having to make leaps. And I mean that affectionately from the standpoint of one thing Harbaugh does well, right, is instead of asking a player to be excellent all game, right, he builds a run game. And it's not the zone run. It's not the Shanahan scheme, but, it's this power run offense where the quarterback manages the game in somewhere between 7 and 9 times a game. You're asked to be excellent, right? And I think Justin Herbert's capable of that. And so I wonder if it's kind of John Elway storyline where, he finally gets, Terrell Davis. Granted, John Elway had lost in some Super Bowls. Does he get the pieces where they accentuate Justin Herbert in a way that, while his stats might not be, eye popping, does it make him the quarterback we thought he could be all along? Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, I agree. So I got the Los Angeles Rams. This was a team that I was super cold on last year. I thought McVay would have been on his way out by this time. Just from like what I was hearing through the media and all that kind of stuff, and that he might go into, talking football, whatever. And now I've just completely 180'd my take on the Rams. I'm really hot on the Rams now. I think you give them now a healthy Cooper Kupp, pairing them up with Nakua, and they got that run game kind of handled and everything. And I still think Stafford is a top 8 quarterback in the league, and they should hypothetically be second, at least in that division, maybe even first. I think they have a chance to hop the 49ers. And so I'm going to put them over the Bills, I think. I think they're like a top 10 team right now. So that's where I'm going to place the Rams.
Yeah.
Love what they did in the draft, too.
I can't hate on that. And they are, speaking of teams who didn't make a push, Seattle really had a chance the last couple of years with the Rams dealing with injuries and retirements. And I don't think they capitalized on that. And now the Seahawks, just like the Cardinals, are punching up at the Rams and the Niners.
Mm-hmm. So let's see. Anthony, you have the Raiders.
So I'm going to put the Raiders in U for Ewers.
Okay.
Our first team there. And I think, unlike some of the other teams, they actually control their number 1 draft pick. But more importantly, I like the Antonio Pierce hire. They finally didn't go for this splashy retread hire or Josh McDaniel, whatever it is. They've also got Marvin Lewis on the staff, who, if you've listened to players like Chad Johnson and Carson Palmer, what Marvin Lewis does to steady a team. So you've got a first-time head coach in Antonio Pierce, and you've got a old head in Marvin Lewis that he can learn from and guide. The tough part is the quarterback's not there, right? I like Gardner Minshew and his moxie, right? The mustache, the everything, but he's the 4th best quarterback in the division. Can we all agree on that? Right?
Maybe. He might be better than Bo Nix.
Okay,
right now.
So at best he's 3rd then.
Yeah,
right.
At best, yeah.
And on based on project potential, he's not, right.
Well, let me think about the backups on the other teams first.
we can agree that his potentials. We can agree his potential is less than Bo Nix's hypothetical potential, right?
Right.
Aiden O'Connell is a big arm, but I think he's very Paxton Lynchy as far as another tall quarterback, or maybe Brock Osweiler. There's a range, but you get to like that tall of a quarterback, sometimes the mechanics don't work out. And look, we all heard that they wanted to trade up for a quarterback, right? Whether it be Penix or McCarthy or whoever, and they didn't. So I wouldn't be surprised if midway through the year and at the end of the year, we're talking about them trading Tay to a team that's a contender or a team that's has a need at wide receiver. And me putting them here is not a reflection on the team or the coaching staff. It's a reflection of where they are and where they need to go. So I don't want this to be Raiders hate or Raiders slander. I've got some friends that are Raiders fans. This is more of what they need to do to, have a sustainable success in the future.
Hack, you got the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, and we can just be honest. Raiders just suck, and they have no hope. So, no need to qualify for your Raiders fans.
Galindo.
So Dolphins, I'm gonna put them above the Texans.
You were meaner to Raiders fans than I was to Blazek.
Well,
Okay.
Hack's not mean to me anymore.
Yeah, Alex is my best friend.
Yeah.
It's a one-way thing, but
I'm sorry.
Anyways, Dolphins. I think they are just the Cowboys of the AFC. It's like last year they would beat up on bad teams, and then they just could never beat a winning team until they beat the Cowboys. So it's just I don't have a ton of hope for their ability to get it done in the playoffs, but in the regular season, they they shine and they play well. They beat the teams that they're supposed to beat, which is obviously going to always get you into playoff contention. Um, but then they also just have the talent. They have the speed. They have a great running back core. They have a great receiver core. Can Tua get it done? That's obviously the biggest question that they have. Um, and I don't know, but I do like what they have. I also just think being down in Miami, playoff football, that's just like the worst time for someone who's used to Miami weather.
Right.
We talked
So
about this. Yeah.
yeah,
No,
yeah.
look, you look at the teams that are going to be at the top, right? The Chiefs, Ravens, maybe the Steelers. I'm not saying the Steelers are, but unless they luck out and have to go to Houston or Indy, which is in a dome, right? He's going to have to play. And so either Tua is going to have to show us that his arm is more live than it is, or Mike McCarthy is going to have to steal components out of other offenses to accommodate for cold weather, right? He can't just run his track meet, zone shift offense. He's going to have to find ways to run a more regular rhythm offense in that cold weather. But um, just from a cap space perspective, they're another team that's kind of put up or shut up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It feels like they've got this year, maybe next, and then things kind of start to. They got to make tough decisions, I guess, at that point.
Yeah.
I could see them giving Tua a kind of a 3 or 4 year extension with it out after year 2, and then if they don't do it this year or next year, they keep McDaniels because I think they'd be dumb to let him go. But you're looking at bringing in a new quarterback.
So I got the Minnesota Vikings. This is actually a team that I'm pretty hot on going into this season. I just feel like if Sam Darnold can just be a game manager, he's got a very good head coach now. We got the defense that really played well last year. They went 7-10 without Kirk Cousins for a majority of the season, and they have offensive pieces, right? They have Justin Jefferson, they have Jordan Addison, they have TJ Hawkinson, Aaron Jones. They have a lot going for them for their roster. They're just needing a quarterback. And, with that all being said, they still need a quarterback, and they don't really have one, at least as of now. And so I think they can shock some people this year. I think there's a world to where they're the second best team in the NFC North. I don't necessarily think that's likely, but we know how football season rolls around, right? And I've been talking about that all the way through this year. There's going to be some teams that you fast forward to the end of the season, you say, how the hell did the Vikings be a 10-7 team, right? But with all that being said, I still think I'm going to put them behind the Chargers. They should be the fourth best team in that division, and so yeah, they really just needed a quarterback, and they let him go to the Falcons.
So best way to put it with the Vikings is, I will say one interesting, juxtaposition is between him and Caleb Williams, right? The two rookie quarterbacks in the division. At least McCarthy played at Michigan where it's cold as hell, and he's used to that, right? And we heard, I don't know that it was all true, but chirping of how, Caleb's dad didn't want him playing in a cold weather, team, all that. And so what's that adjustment going to look like? And the other one is the Vikings, I like their head coach. They've got a good team. They've got Justin Jefferson. Unlike the Bears, where you're jamming a bunch of new pieces together and hoping it works, there have been some core consistent pieces with the Vikings and that staff that while the quarterback is new and who knows what's going to happen with Darnold and McCarthy, there's some consistency there as an organization that might bode well for them competing this year.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we have three very good teams coming up next. Anthony, you have the New England Patriots.
I'm going to put them – they're kind of tied with the Raiders for me. Just put them behind the Raiders. Okay. From the standpoint of I'm more excited for Antonio Pierce as a head coach than I am Gerard Mayo. Mayo, it's curious to see because he really didn't keep almost anybody from Belichick's staff, right? But I get that they drafted May. They brought home, Jacoby Brissett, but beyond like Taquan Thornton, who's a weapon on that team? I think the defense is going to be solid, right? But I think they're going to be a solid defense in the way that the Jets defense was solid last year, but doesn't mean they were hyper competitive. And so they're not going to be drafting a quarterback next year, but
They have to
they
look
might
forward
turn.
to the draft.
Yeah. I mean,
Right.
who's that? Who's the receiver at Ohio State that didn't come out?
Oh, something.
Inoba or
Yeah,
Kiba
yeah,
or whatever.
yeah.
Like that. That's a guy that they're looking at next year to start,
Right.
putting pieces around. And the other one is with clearing cap space. And I think right now they're still deciding who their president of football operations and who their uh, GM is. That along with a year removed from Belichick and Mayo putting his fingerprints on the team. I think next year, at the end of the year, we'll see what kind of team and offense they're trying to run,
Hmm.
and next year we'll see what kind of team they're trying to build with the way they draft and attack free agency. This felt like a huge reset year.
Yeah.
I don't know. The Chargers brought in Harbaugh and resets and things. I don't know that there's a team that's gone through a harder reset than the Patriots are going through right now
They
in the last decade.
currently they're not favored to win one game this year, at least per game to game basis. They are not favored in any single game that they're playing. And what was the other team hack? Is it the Panthers also? Do you remember? There's like two teams that aren't. It probably is the Panthers.
I think
But
it was the Panthers. Yeah.
yeah. All right. So hack, you have the New Orleans Saints, the
Okay.
Spencer Rattler led New Orleans Saints. No, I'm kidding.
What?
I, dude, I don't know what to do with this team.
Why?
Like,
I would do something very mean, I think.
they're so bad, but they're in. It's just like they're always there though. Like
Mhm.
they're getting these wins, and I don't know how.
That's
They're
their
always in
problem.
contention, and I don't know how. As far as winning the division, making the playoffs, like it makes no sense. I'm gonna put them on the top of you for viewers just because I don't like them,
That's what I would have done.
and I
Welcome
don't
to the
think they've
Church of
gotten that
Anthony.
much better. And everyone else in their division, I think, has gotten better, and they haven't. And so then they
Rattler season, it
then get
comes.
worse. Like, what are they doing? Like, I don't know.
Can I
I
ask you a
liked their
question?
first two draft picks, but then they didn't have a third or fourth rounder. Like, there's just not a ton that they can put together right now. Like, they're a couple years of just being really bad before they can ever be good again.
So can I ask you a question about the Saints?
Yeah.
How is a team that is basically almost a third over the cap going into the offseason, a team that, doesn't have a franchise signal caller, a team that is trying to rebuild from their last head coach right now? Mickey Loomis is fine, but, they haven't had that identity. And how are they supposed to ever reset? And this is the thing. They're never bad enough to be in the top 10 in the draft and go
Mhm.
get, their signal caller or a game changer. And they're in the middle of the draft, but they trade pieces randomly, or they have to deal with Alvin Kamara's contract or Michael Thomas' contract. Or, didn't they trade up for someone a couple years ago? They are the definition of his insanity is doing the same thing over and over again. They're constantly, and I joke, it might not be this number, but they constantly hover between the 18th to 14th team in the league, and they keep throwing money at it, and they keep having the same cap problems and the same draft issues. It, it it's one of those teams where like sometimes you got to rip the Band-Aid off, and I'll say it, kind of like the Cowboys did, around the end of Romo's tenure, or Patriots are doing right now. Sometimes you just got to let it burn a little bit
I think that's going to
and then come
happen
back.
this next year.
The
Well, and
Texans,
that's what happened with for this is NBA, but the Spurs
Yeah, I
were
was thinking
that
about the
way. It was
Spurs
like
too.
they
Yeah.
lose their core of their dynasty, and they just like kept fighting to just be borderline playoff. Maybe they make it, they get bounced easily round one, or they just miss it, and good luck getting a high lottery pick. And they finally did the same thing, ripped the bandit off. Hey, let's just be bad.
Hmm.
And they got Wimby. They have two picks, two first rounds this year. Like, you just got to do it
Yeah.
to get
or
good.
even closer to home, right? Like, Texans, right? We took our medicine for 2 years, right? Got rid of Pastor Jack Easterby, which I don't know how he got involved in the team, but um, the Drew Brees money, the Kalmara money, the Michael Thomas money, just kind of. I think they need to stop trying to make fetch happen, and just let the past be the past, and come in with a new identity.
Yeah, so I have the New York Giants. This is a team that me and Hack have been had our ways with this team, and we've been right and right and right all again. I feel like there are people out there that are on the Real Friends in Football cast that keep wanting to support the New York Giants, but me and Hack
Do we want to name
had
names,
had
or
our
is that
opinion.
just
No,
okay? Okay.
week one I did attend the game, and the Cowboys did up winning about 40-3 in that game. But yeah, to each his own.
Name names or you're a coward.
His name is Miles Thomas.
There we go.
Miles
So
Momus.
Oh, I like Miles. Damn it. I like
yeah,
Miles. He might be my
he's
favorite RFF guy. I'm not
he's
gonna lie.
yeah. I mean, probably until you get to know him a little bit better. So,
Whoa.
whoa,
I love Miles.
yeah, he doesn't love you back. So
That's fine.
that's fine. All
I
right.
don't
So
even
yeah,
want to know what Miles thinks of me.
I have no. He said he liked you. I think.
Oh,
I
cool.
don't know. I'm pretty sure he did. Okay. So I have the New York Giants. I'm going to put them right here. Yeah, I
Wow.
think comparatively, there's a little more to love on the Raiders team. I just feel like the Giants, their roster is not good. At least they got Malik Neighbors finally. I do kind of agree with that draft pick because they've been just desiring a receiver, and they should have signed Saquon Barkley. They didn't do it. They signed Daniel Jones instead, which was a mistake. And so, yeah, not much more to say about that team. This is
I
going to
kind
be a good
of
one now.
I kind of think they should be behind the Patriots only because I don't love next year's QB class, so I don't know what the hell they're going to do next year unless you believe the Bill Belichick and Dak Prescott to the New York Giants rumors. Um, so New York Jets, I have very clearly based on recent clips that you've put out. I'm not an Aaron Rodgers fan. I think he's talented. I'm not a fan. I don't think he'd be a good hangout either, right? There's a lot of guys that I say, oh, cool, I'd hang out with him. I would not want to hang out with Aaron Rodgers in any means. And I'm sure he wouldn't want to hang out with me because I actually read books. I don't just put them on my shelf and say I read them. But as far as the Jets, the talent's there, right? The defense is there. I like Sauce Gardner. I'm still mad to this day. As great as Stingley has been late as of
Oh yeah,
late,
Texans.
I wish Sauce Gardner was a fucking Texan, man. Like I was high on him coming out of Cincinnati. But end of the day, Rodgers going to be healthy. The Patriots are worse. The Bills are kind of in disarray, and I think the Dolphins are talented, but back to what you said, there's pressure on them, right? And let's see what pressure does to that team. And so, um, I think the Jets are ahead of the Bears and the Wild Boys.
Okay.
And I'll say this: they are definitely in contention for a wild card spot. I think the Bills or Dolphins might win that division, but the only reason I let the Falcons go ahead is just because I think Falcons really are just slightly better than everybody else in that division. Where I think the Jets, Dolphins, and Bills are going to beat up on each other, but this is a team where, if you believe the rumor mill, they were trying to get rid of Nathaniel Hackett. Okay, the only coach that deserved less to be a coach than Nathaniel Hackett was Adam Gase. Okay, and he was. I'm not a Peyton Manning fan, but Peyton Manning is the reason that we've had to deal with Daniel Jones, Mitch Trubisky, and fucking Adam Gase twice as a head coach. Okay, Aaron Rodgers is the reason I had to listen to it for a year of why Nathaniel Hackett was going to be a decent head coach. He's not. Okay. And so, the last podcast we had a tier called Anthony's Angels. Aaron's Angels are Nathaniel Hackett, Randall Cobb, and Alan Lazard. Alan Lazard was trying to be a number 2 receiver last year. I don't care what people say about Zach Wilson. It should have been better than that. And I'll say this: if your talent as Nathaniel Hackett is you can only coach for Aaron Rodgers, good luck after the next 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So he is a bum. I'll say it. Nathaniel Hackett is a bum. Clip that, post it. I hope the New York media gets a hold of it. I hope Nathaniel Hackett hears it. I hope somebody at Nathaniel Hackett's kid's school plays this for him. He is a bum. But they have a chance to make the wild card.
Hack?
Yeah, So I disagree about the GOAT conversation. I do think Aaron Rodgers deserves to at least be in the conversation. I think from what he's shown us, he's one of the most like I don't know. I just think he's one of the most incredible quarterbacks I've personally seen play. Obviously, I can't go and speak to all these quarterbacks that played in the early
In our
'90s, '80s,
generation, at
whatever.
least you
Like,
you would say.
yeah.
But how much
So
better is he than Matt Stafford? Because I
I
think
think
Matt Stafford is a GOAT talent.
I think he's significantly better than Matt Stafford. Maybe not significantly,
I
but I
don't.
think he's better than Matt Stafford. I also think that I will say this though, as his career has gone on, and certainly in the last 2 years, my opinions of him have dropped. Just as far as how much he's trying to control things, it's like just stop.
Hmm.
His attitude on the field oftentimes is just very, it's just awful. Like it just feels like bad leadership sometimes. Maybe it works though, because typically by the end of the season, his receivers that he's constantly yelling at end up playing better. So maybe
Hmm.
it works. I don't know, but it's just off putting to me. But I do think he's a phenomenal talent. So I disagree, but I also obviously I'm not like a hater with your take. I get it.
Yeah, I think
Um,
he's
But
like
but
top.
who's in the GOAT conversation from the standpoint of like Peyton Manning is kind of on the fringe of the GOAT conversation as far as it's one of the greatest quarterbacks alive, but or to ever play. But you've got Brady Montana. You've got your Staubachs, which I think are worth considering because what he did, I didn't watch him, but what he did in his era was huge, right? Um, and then you've got Mahomes, who's up. You can't have five, six, seven guys in the GOAT conversation, right?
mhm.
It's because and Aaron Rodgers falls into that category of like a Steve Young of damn, he was an all-time talent, but I can't put him in the GOAT conversation.
All right,
Yeah,
would you rather have Roethlisberger or Rogers? Anthony.
I'd rather have Eli Manning. I'll go to my grave saying that.
Oh man.
wow.
Um, I would take. I'll say this: the three things I dislike about Aaron Rodgers are I don't think he's coachable, right? In the way that he tries to control things and controls, who's on the team. I don't think he goes out of his way to work with younger players, especially this later on, other than his neat handshake with the joint with Sauce Gardner. He doesn't really seem to develop talent or relationships with guys that way. And the third one is um, he's kind of a bailer. Like, I don't mean from an accountability standpoint, although he does that too. I can't remember the last time I watched a game where I'm like, damn, they're down 9 or 10 in the fourth quarter, and Aaron Rodgers is driving back. He kind of just dinks and dunks and gets out of the play, and he just at least with Stafford, at least with some of these guys, right? Even Josh Allen, who I malign sometimes, they fucking take the chance, right? And Aaron doesn't. He kind of like I don't like his body language, but Aaron Rodgers is a craftsman. He is. He's got all the tools. He works on his throws. He is talented. I will take him over Roethlisberger, who I don't think I could have gotten to eat a salad back in the day.
Yeah, I was trying to see, all the quarterbacks in our generation, like where you kind of had him.
Well,
We had
did you
said
hear the
Peyton
Chris Sims
Manning.
story?
We said
Did you,
Peyton Manning.
did you hear the Chris Sims story about Ben Roethlisberger at camp?
No.
So here, I'm going to demo Chris Sims when he was at camp. He used, because he
This
was a
guy brings
quarterback,
in
he used to
props.
talk to guys. No, but he used to talk to guys about, hey, how do you throw the ball? Are you a 2-4 guy, 2-5 guy? Like, where do you lace up? Aaron Rodgers, Matt Stafford, all these guys he talks to knows. He said that Ben Roethlisberger was the first guy he went to. He goes, well, I don't know, never thought about it like that. When you think about it, like, no,
What?
it's
Oh my
quoted.
god.
Chris Sims has said like, and to me, even Brett Favre, I bet, as aloof as Brett Favre could be sometimes, I bet you Brett Favre knew that he was, a 205 or 2-4 guy, right? I'm a 1-4, 1-5. Like I played high school and I know that. And so Ben has all the God given talent, but I think that is indicative of we talked last pod about I want guys to come back and get better at something, right? I don't like Aaron Rodgers, and I don't think I don't need him getting better at being a quarterback necessarily. I think he needs to get into therapy and work on being a better teammate and person. But I've never worried about him like working on his angles and his body and like the mechanics like that. That's not an issue. So I'll take that all day. That Ben Roethlisberger story astounds me to this day. I'll see if I can find the clip. But your reaction right there, like, and that's where I don't come from football as a fantasy guy or like a betting guy. Like, I want to know what's like really going on. And that story about Ben Roethlisberger astounded me in the wrong way.
Yeah, that's funny. All right, Hack, you got the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, real quick, last thing I'll say too, because if you're throwing into the GOAT conversation all of these other things that's not related to how you play the game, then absolutely Aaron Rodgers doesn't deserve to be in the conversation because of all the things we've mentioned. But like you said, he is an absolute craftsman. And then you can also bring in obviously
all-time talent.
You can bring in wins into the conversation too. Like, sure, he only has the one Super Bowl as far as I know, right? It's not two.
Yeah, one.
So I was like, please be right on that. But like Dan Marino, who broke all these records, never won a Super Bowl, and he's always touted as one of the top of all time too. Now, you know,
he's an all-time
one of the top of all time
guy.
Is different than the GOAT conversation. So I do get that.
And that's, I say it. I loved Phillip Rivers. I don't dare put Phillip Rivers in any of these conversations, right? And I thought Phillip Rivers was slinging it.
Yeah. So, anyways, Eagles. I'm gonna put them ahead of the Rams.
Wow.
I think they have the roster for it, but I think they've always had the roster, and they've just never gotten it done. The one time they got it done in recent history was with Nick Foles. And obviously it's been
like the most shocking season.
Yeah, like not necessarily. I don't want to say fluke, but also I'm going to say fluke.
Yeah.
Super Bowl win. So
was that during like COVID too? No, that was before.
No, that was before. It's like 2016.
The Bucs was COVID.
Yeah. So I also saw today that Kenny Pickett has actually been outperforming.
Was that I think that was a Cowboys fan that posted that.
I saw like an article.
Okay. I saw a Cowboys fan post that, and I was like, wait a second.
Either way,
I mean, I wouldn't be shocked.
I don't know. But for the clickbait, there's a chance Kenny Pickett starts over Jalen Hurts this season. So
that's why they didn't bring Justin Fields to Philadelphia.
And that's why Mac Jones is in Jacksonville. Let's go. Riot.
I think they obviously the addition of Saquon, we mentioned it earlier. We've probably mentioned it plenty of times. They always get the draft picks that they need to just fall to them. They're just handed to them. So their draft picks are incredible, but what do they do with those draft picks?
Yeah,
has always been a little bit underwhelming, to say the least. And so, do they have the roster and the build to make it back to the Super Bowl? Absolutely. Will they? Not quite sure. Because I think the Lions right now, I would pick them.
Yeah.
The 49ers certainly are a team to contend with, at least for the next year or two. So, yeah.
I got the Pittsburgh Steelers, my new second favorite team, potentially first favorite if I break the mold like Hack. And then Anthony's going to be like, well, you're going to be off them in half a season anyways. I guess I'm going to consider that Russell Wilson is the starter in this situation, which I hate immensely. And I will say this, and I think both of y'all will agree, okay? With the quarterback situation with how it is, Justin Fields offers way more upside than Russell Wilson. And in that division, which is going to be very difficult, I feel like you have to go with the upside guy that can break out. And so that's how I feel about that. Anyways, with all that being said, I still like their defense a lot. I do think they drafted well. I still want another receiver outside of Pickens. Obviously, they got rid of Deontay Johnson over to the Panthers. They brought in Roman Wilson. I think he might be like a slot guy for them, but he's not like a true wide receiver too. I'm like part of the Steelers like Twitter base now a little bit, and Najee Harris has dropped some weight, so I think he might be like my sleeper running back in fantasy football, but that's for another day. But I do think there is a world to where they can contend in that division. I think they're going to win games against teams like the Ravens and the Bengals. I think they can go 3-3 in that division, and so I'm going to put them behind the Chargers. Drink the Kool-Aid. Drink the Kool-Aid. Put Justin Fields at quarterback.
Yeah,
The
I'm
Steelers-
kind of concerned for their season just because of the quarterback situation. Like, the saying, if you have two quarterbacks, you have none. And so I just think they're setting themselves up for a lot of division.
They had 3 quarterbacks last season, and
yeah.
they made the playoffs. So
True.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong about that. So maybe that just shoots my whole argument down.
I was saying this to Anthony. Like, I feel if you put the Steelers in like any other division, we'd be talking about them a lot more highly. But obviously, that has a lot to do with it because if you place the Steelers in, I don't know, the AFC East or like South or something like that, I feel like we would be talking about them as maybe the second best team in the AFC South.
But we've said that about the Chargers, the Broncos. Like, there's teams like that we've said before, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think with the Steelers, they are definitely drink the Kool-Aid. But I mean this from the standpoint of, say what you want about Deshaun Watson, but you're looking at a division with Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Deshaun Watson, hypothetically, right? At least $400 million or $240 million left or something ridiculous like that, right? That's another team like the Titans. If they're not pushing, it actually might be in their worst interest to make the wild card, right? Because now they're in the middle of the pack and not in position to make draft a quarterback.
Well, that's the gripe around Tomlin. So
it is, but it's also I think this is one of those years where if they are, say they're 2-4, I think Fields gets in, and I don't think they're going to put it together, and they're going to be in position to draft a quarterback next year, right? And not because they want to, but remember, they didn't want to draft a quarterback the year they did Pickett, right? But Ben left, and it wasn't a strong quarterback draft class. They just kind of had to pick someone at 22.
God, that quarterback class is horrible.
I mean, it's right up there with the E.J. Manuel quarterback class, man.
Yeah.
But,
they also have the toughest division, or toughest, I already said division, toughest strength of schedule in the league as well. I'm pretty sure they're number one with how difficult the schedule is.
I will say with how respected Tomlin is in that team, is that a place where Dak Prescott or
like
Cousins,
a free agent guy,
right, could go. That's really interesting to me. But all
right, Seahawks. Unless you're going to say something else.
No, I was trying to avoid this one because I
say what I'm going to say.
Put them. I'm going to put them ahead of the. I'm going to put them at the top of Kool-Aid.
Okay.
And this isn't. I've gone on before about. I think Geno Smith has shown remarkable. I do think they were ready for a change from Pete Carroll. But I've said for a while that DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett are the best receiver duo, right? Pound for pound, and as far as the versatility.
And Jigba might be better than Lockett already.
Well, and now JSN, right? I was about to say that, right? But JSN we didn't know until last year. But before that, Metcalf and Lockett were kind of like the old Marcus Colston and Lance Moore combo, right? If they would combine for 2,000 yards and 18 touchdowns, which is really good for your number 1 and 2 receivers.
Mm-hmm.
They finally got better at running back. The offensive line's starting to play better. This is just going to be if Geno Smith stays healthy, it's going to be a conversation of can he maximize the talents? And if not, that is a team that is going to go try and find either a Dak Prescott, Kirk Cousins, or they're going to be trying to draft a Shedeur Sanders, someone who's going to elevate that team from a talent standpoint, right? So I will say that they pushed teams like the Rams last year, right? And I don't think, they're going to push teams like the Cardinals. So I think they'll push for the wild card. I just don't think they're having them as the third best team in their division. It's hard to put them in, a strong bid for wild card, but they're a team that I could easily move to the top of or later in this category too. But talent's there, man. And unlike some of these other teams, they haven't had to give up pieces or retread at quarterback, right? Like all these other teams have, either had to add pieces, reset. That they got a new coach, but a lot of the pieces are still there.
Yeah. All right, Hack, you got the 49ers.
Yeah, I'm gonna put him behind the Chiefs. As for Super Bowl, I love Brock Purdy. Like I know Brock Purdy gets a lot of hate for just being a game manager and is he even actually good at quarterback? I think he's great. We'll see.
What do you have him ranked? Just curious.
I don't know. I never look at. I've never actually thought about rankings where I rank them, but
would you have him over Dak?
No.
Would you have him over?
Hold on. With contract value, do you have him over Dak?
Okay, that's
no, like yeah, absolutely.
No,
he would be like the number one quarterback in the league then.
No, he wouldn't.
With contract value, yeah.
No, with contract value, I'd actually say it's Matthew Stafford actually hasn't redone his contract, right? Like I'm not saying he has to be a $60 million guy, but I've said before, Dak is a $45 to $50 million contract. We're talking about 60, right?
Purdy's about to get paid $50 million plus.
And that's the problem.
Right.
And that's the problem because you do the math, $3 to $3.5 million is what a depth starter or a depth player is, right? So every $10 million you give a quarterback, you're taking away 2 or 3 depth starters. What does every good Super Bowl team have? They've got some depth, right? And so that's where the trade-off is. And so that's where I say contract value right now. But if you're going to pay Brock Purdy what they're paying, Lamar Jackson or Dak Prescott, no, he's not worth that.
Hack, Tua or Purdy?
Look, I'm just going to say this. All right. Purdy has been to the Super Bowl.
Okay.
Dak has not. Tua has not. Any other quarterbacks you want to throw in there?
Brad Johnson won a Super Bowl, okay? Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl. Peyton Manning on his bum-ass shoulder and couldn't feel the ball won a Super Bowl thanks to Von Miller. I don't want to hear none of that. Yes, you can get to a Super Bowl. There's something about it, but it's Brock Purdy shows up when it matters.
I think that's what Hack's
he shows up when it matters.
Yeah, you're getting
my
hostile
bad.
like I'm going against Brock Purdy right now. I'm pro Brock Purdy.
it's the get to a Super Bowl, not it's sure. Like the same. Dak Dak doesn't fold, right? Like Dak is not Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers, I get on because I see him start doing this, throw the ball away. I'm like, all right, do you care anymore? At the end of games, Dak's still caring, even if Zeke's his center. Okay, right? Like Dak still cares, and I love that about Dak. Right? He's going down, shooting, swinging. Right?
Mm-hmm.
But he I just hate had they been to a Super Bowl because there are guys that have gotten to a Super Bowl that, look, Rex Grossman got to a fucking Super Bowl. Okay, thank God Rex Grossman isn't in the rankings because I would spend 30 minutes dogging on Rex Grossman.
Would he be under Chad Pennington?
He's the Chad Penningtonist of all Chad Penningtons.
More than Chad Pennington?
Yeah, Chad Pennington's likable.
Anyways, I'm interested with the 49ers, obviously what they're going to do with their receiver situation with Debo and Ayuk and all the rumors. And I mean, it seems obviously as of right now, they're rolling with them this year. Come next year, what happens? How does that team?
One of them
will
be
draft
gone
receiver?
For sure. Yeah, right. They got the guy from Florida.
Yeah,
dude, he is a unit. He's going to be CTE Central. Yeah, but he's going to be CTE Central. Have you ever noticed that every big catch, like one-handed everything, he's also fucking getting crushed? Oh, yeah. Ricky Pearsall or whatever.
Yeah,
he fits the Shanahan scheme very well.
I'm just interested as the team gets older on defense, especially.
I think this is their last year.
As you're gonna have once you have to pay Purdy, you got to revamp your receiving core. You got like what's gonna happen with your offensive line. Like at some point, that's gonna get worse too. So there's just a lot that they're set up to win right now. And I know we even talked about this past season they made it. the season prior, they probably would have made it had they not had zero quarterbacks, healthy quarterbacks.
Yeah.
So I expect them to get back there, but I think it'll be a little bit more difficult than
And let's
last year.
and let's make no bones about it, right? Getting to the conference championship, I think, counts, right? As far as doing something, because there's a lot of quarterbacks we talk about.
Wait, so you're
Dak
saying getting to the conference championship counts, but getting to the Super
matters.
Bowl doesn't?
No. I thought you were going into the category of just getting to the Super Bowl counts for
Okay, I got you.
something.
I got you.
I,
Yeah.
I and I hate that. Like, I'm not a quarterback wins guy, right? Like, it
Oh no.
can't be. Because it's a weird stat because then playoff performance has to matter. I thought you were getting into this guy, no, getting to the championship's hard, right? Like, Aaron Rodgers is a guy. He hasn't been able to get back in a long time, right? Some guy named Colin Kaepernick scared him off, and I don't think he's ever been back since. Okay. But Niners is interesting is I think their mistake or the fallacy they fell into is they folded when Debo was in an uproar about his contract, and they paid Debo as a top tier wide receiver when I think Debo is a top tier weapon.
Athlete.
But I think having Christian McCaffrey makes Debo a little more expendable. And now with Ayuk might be a number one receiver, but he's only done it for a year, right? So they're in this weird range, and Trent Williams isn't going to play forever.
Mhm.
And I think he got nicked up last year. I think they've got a 2-year window, and I think it's why it's so important. And also, at some point, how long do they keep going with Kyle Shanahan before they do remember, Tony Dungy, there's been tons of, Mark Jackson with the Warriors, right? They were right there, and they brought in Steve Kerr. At some point, do we just say, or do they say, Kyle, we love you, but we need someone to kind of put us over the fence? And I think that's not 2024 or 25, but I think it could be 2026 when you start to see Trent. What happens with the receivers? What happens with Trent Williams? And then what happens? Because they're going to obviously, when they sign Purdy, they're going to give him a pretty big bonus up front, and they're going to roll the cap rollover into the beginning of the next contract. But the second year of the extension is where you usually see the most prohibitive, cap hit start to hit. That year is going to be really interesting to see what they're capable of.
Mm-hmm. All right, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I feel like I'm going to be kind of mean to them, but I just think last year they kind of just had an easy road to get to the playoffs. And obviously they beat the Eagles, but I mean, what were the Eagles at that point in the playoffs? So I'm going to put them behind the Chargers. I think they might be like a 8-9, 7-10-ish team. But, I like Baker Mayfield, but I think he's kind of like a C tier quarterback. And, the weapons, Godwin and Evans are getting a little bit older. Their whole team is older in general, and don't really love the coach either. And I just think last year was kind of just them taking advantage of that division. And, while I'm placing them here, I still have them second in the division, so I'm not completely hating on them. But I feel like if you put them against any other team above them, I would probably favor them to win the game. So that's how I'm kind of putting them there. Anthony, you have the Titans. We have Titans fans.
I'm going to put them at the ahead of the Panthers.
Oh, that's higher than I thought.
I will say this. I like Callahan as a coach, and they've brought his dad in to do the offensive line, which, hey, how cool is it to be a head coach and have your dad right there to, help run the offensive line for you? I think that's phenomenal, and it's going to be a great story. They signed Calvin Ridley, who I think is a two-way receiver, but they still have DeAndre Hopkins. They've got some guys. Traylon Burks is an unknown whether or not he's been healthy. And while losing Derrick Henry,
too.
and while losing Derrick Henry sucks, Pollard might be a better fit for Callahan's offense, if that makes any sense.
I like Tajay Spears a lot too.
Now, it comes down to it. I don't believe in Will Levis. I think there's a real if we were going to do this midway through the year, they could very quickly be ear for ears because they potentially are. He potentially is the fourth best quarterback in that division, right? They really could be looking towards next year. I think, if I think about rationally, they could beat the Colts, who are still trying to figure out who they're going to be, and I think they could beat the Jags, who I think are undermanned and undermanned as a roster and overhyped at quarterback. And so, the defense wasn't bad, right? I'm curious to see what they'd be without Vrabel. But I I feel like Will Levis is one of those quarterbacks like Jake Locker. He's got a fastball, and that's all you're getting. Like, you know, that's it. No curveball, no split, no change, just fucking straight gas is what Will Levis brings into it. Unless it's coffee, then he puts mayo in that motherfucker. But um, I, as much as I hate the Titans, and I hate them for leaving Texas or Houston, and more importantly, I hate that they kept the Oilers throwback and doesn't allow the city of Houston to use them. Um, I'm going to put a little more respect on their name than I'm usually doing and say that they're further along than teams like the Saints, Raiders, Giants, and Patriots.
Okay. Hack, you have our friendly division rival, the Dallas Cowboy Commanders.
I was gonna say I'm gonna put them at the back of Wild Boys.
Oh, you're hot on this team.
I am hot on this team mainly because they have former Cowboys players, so they've got to be better. No, I think obviously Neighbors. I was gonna put them at the very top of Drink the Kool-Aid,
Okay.
and I think that's pretty obvious why. Like, there's a lot of hype around, or not Neighbors. Gosh, is that what I said? Did I
Yeah,
say
Jaden
Neighbors?
Daniels.
Okay. Yeah. Jaden Daniels, and just the fact that I think they've addressed a lot of positions of need. Obviously, quarterback being the main one. They have Eckler, obviously aged, but I think given their running backs, they have Brian Robinson still. Like, I think the running back situation is pretty good. I think you have Terry McLaurin, so naturally that's really good. They their tight end, I like where they're at with tight end. They just got Sano as well,
Yeah.
so I just Dotson obviously is a good receiver as well. Defensively, I think they've gotten a lot stronger on their front seven. And so I think this offseason they did a lot of positives. I think they got better.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're still third in that division, but I think it's a lot closer than it has been.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
I don't hate that.
I think it's kind of crazy to say this, but the last time I think the Commanders, as they are now, I think the last time they had a quasi franchise quarterback was Jason Campbell, right? And we kind of forget how solid Jason Campbell was for a bit, especially before he broke his collarbone bone with the Raiders. But RG3 couldn't stay healthy. Kirk Cousins was kind of just
A rental.
it was reality TV from the standpoint of after they start tagging him over and over again, right? You were kind of just waiting to see when he was going to leave. So it's kind of, an oxymoron. I call it a franchise quarterback because they franchised him just to let him leave, right?
Right.
I can tell you they did not like that, and he did like that. But I think they have a potential to do something here, and while I don't think Jaden Daniels is this effervescent like rise to the tier talent, I think he can distribute the ball and be a really good quarterback. It's just curious to see what Dan Quinn does. And I think Dan Quinn had a lot of good and bad experiences in Atlanta, but I don't think they would have taken him if Dan Quinn didn't feel like they provided him some upside so that Dan Quinn can focus on building that defense. I'm sure he wanted a quarterback that he feels like can manage and play to their strengths, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I can definitely see them as like at least a eight-ish win team this year. And I mean that at that point
really I wouldn't be shocked to see the Cowboys underperform
yeah, right.
and them
I agree.
overperform just by a couple games.
Or the
and
Eagles.
It's just a couple game difference in my opinion.
Yeah.
From like you said, if they're an 8-win team and Cowboys Eagles are 10, 11-win teams, like that's only a couple game difference.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That the Commanders win one or two more and the Cowboys or Eagles lose one or two more, then they're right there.
Right. No, I agree.
Or look at this, right? Like, say they make the wild card and they draw a iffy Falcons team or an iffy Bucks team. All of a sudden, they're in the second round of the playoffs, right? And it's kind of sneaky in that way. I wish they would change the logo and the franchise. I was a big fan of like
You were a big fan of the
Warhogs
R words.
no, I thought Warhogs would be cool, right? Washington Warhogs or something like that.
Were you a fan of
Commanders
the
seems like a
history
weird
of
thing.
their logo at all, Anthony? Anthony Ho?
No, but I thought it was a great team to associate with Dan Snyder.
Me clipping.
I will say,
Me getting
I'm one
Anthony
of those
canceled.
people. Well, it's like the Cleveland, Guardians, right? I had to catch
Yeah.
myself there. I'm historically bad about calling teams by that year. I still call team, what's it called? I still say the Charlotte Bobcats sometimes when I'm not being careful. My historical anecdotes end at 2008 when I
Mhm.
graduated high school. I peaked there, guys. I'm going to tell you there. Everything I remember, all the music I remember is from
Yeah, it's
2008 and
true.
no
I
further.
hate
Okay,
that.
I've never heard of a Future. I know I'm living in it, but I don't know who Future is.
You think I would have liked you a lot more back then? Or less?
Um, Probably less because I had more of an ego back then. I'm going to be totally honest.
If you've humbled yourself somehow, at least a
Yeah,
little bit.
divorce and depression do that to a guy.
Oh yeah. Well, we'll save that one
Mental
for
health
another
plug.
podcast. Yeah.
Mental
Yeah.
health plug. All right, what do we think of the tiers, guys?
So yeah, I was gonna say, I guess like final thoughts into the tier list. I think I would have done pretty similar to this. I don't know if y'all want to go like row by row and just say something you just hate, or if there is anything you hate. I'll start it off. I guess like I think we could maybe add a couple teams into the Super Bowl. Like I guess like Ravens and Lions would probably be the two that I would maybe add, but I think it would have to be a group addition.
But
And
when's
if
the last?
not, I'm completely
But the
yeah,
Ravens didn't even get to the AFC Championship,
yeah. No, I agree.
right? Like that's the tough part. I think the Ravens and Bengals, I can make that argument, but if I'm going to put the Bengals in there, are the Lions really a far shot from where I think the Bengals are? Does that make sense? And I, I struggle just kind of like I don't want more than four quarterbacks in the top tier because I think you really start to dilute it. I don't think there's five teams that are, really in that conversation of, yeah, there's a good chance they get to the Super Bowl, right?
I would
Not
say
about
that
winning the Super Bowl.
when it comes to the Super Bowl, the Chiefs and the San Francisco 49ers at this moment have the most reason to be in the tier by themselves. Obviously, that's going to quickenly move as the season progresses, but I feel like it's fine. It was just an offer. So coffee is closers. Any team that we hate or love, or yeah, I guess hate being in there.
I think the Cowboys and the Bills are the most boom or bust on that. As far as they both had to give up pieces, and I don't think either team has added anything of significance that I think makes them whole or makes them better. And then I know there's going to be people that say that the Packers or the Jags deserve to be up in there, but those
Oh,
people are
I think
casuals.
I think
Casuals, look at me.
I
If you
think
like the Jags and Trevor Lawrence, you are a casual.
I think putting the Jags up there would be pretty crazy. Yeah, I guess we will get some flame for the Packers, but I'm cool with that. Like I'm ready for that discussion. So, all right, so Wild Boys. I think like initially Hack putting the Commanders up there was kind of wild, but then like after thinking more about it, I'm like cool with it. Um, what do y'all
And
think?
they could easily, right? I could put them along with the Seahawks, right?
Mhm.
Like location wise. I,
Right.
I think when you get to the end and beginning of these tiers, there's this imperfect toggle of like kind of like how we said, I know the Bears are ahead of the Packers. Realistically, they're probably right on top of each other for
Hmm.
different reasons, right? I will say the Panthers and the Titans probably deserve to be ranked lower, but the Panthers don't have their own draft pick, and I am trying to make up for being called a Titans hater. So
What do you think, Hack? I could lower the Panthers and the Titans.
I just need Panthers to be good in fantasy. I don't care what happens in real life.
So you put them up there as a
I literally like half of my starting lineup is the Falcons and the
yeah.
Panthers, basically.
Well,
Not actually, but
and what's nuts is right. I think kind of like at the top, you can't have more than 2 to 4. At the bottom, you never really have more than 4 teams racing to the bottom for the top pick, right? It's always
Yeah.
2 or 3 teams.
mhm.
What sucks is
I would agree with
know-
Anthony in the sense that the Titans and the Panthers at least have like a direction, and I feel
Yes,
like
that's what I was about to say.
those other teams are just crumbling south.
And
Well,
certainly for the Panthers,
kind of, but
Panthers, I would say even a little bit more than the Titans, I think have a more positive direction. Like even if they're still bad, I think they at least like know. I mean, maybe they don't because it's only been 1 year of Bryce Young, but like I obviously trust Bryce Young over Will Levis. So, so for me, I think there's at least like you're saying
you
that
can preach
direction
at the
for-
Church of Anthony anytime. I think, talking about realistic expectations as far as drink the Kool-Aid, I'm not expecting the Panthers to make a playoff, but as far as drink the Kool-Aid,
Yeah.
if Bryce Young leaves the year with 32 to 3,300 yards, passing around 25 touchdowns and less than around 10 interceptions, that's a really good improvement for where he was and for that team, right?
Mhm.
So let's talk about what that means. Drink the Kool-Aid doesn't mean we think they're irrational. I think it just means that there's reason for hope. The teams below, and I could switch the Panthers or the Titans with the Raiders. I think the Raiders are really that one team where I don't know what they're going to be with the Antonio Pierce head coach. I just think they're looking forward to the next draft. And people are going to hate on me for my Broncos take too, but I just don't think they're as talented as
I
people
mean
make them out to be.
I think their defense is all right, but I probably wouldn't place them maybe higher than the Cardinals. I don't really know. I feel fine doing it.
They had to get rid of Justin Simmons, right? Who's a great safety. Who's to say they don't have to trade? Who's the corner? Is it Cortland Sutton?
Those like
Patrick Surtain. Who says they don't have to trade Patrick Surtain next year?
I think all those 4 teams next to each other are all teams that are kind of rebuilding like entirely, right? Like Cardinals. Even you could probably even put the Vikings kind of in there too, but like all teams that are kind of just like not it this year at all. Like
I will say the last 8 teams that we have ranked, I feel are rationally going into the year the last 8 teams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the biggest mover that could happen would be the Chargers.
Yeah.
Just because I could go so many different ways, I think, for them.
Well,
Yeah,
so
look at the first Alex Smith year, right? Granted, they had Michael Crabtree back then, and Michael Crabtree was, while long term not great, Michael Crabtree was a fucking unit. But
nah, hate him. Don't like him. He was bad receiver. Never did anything in college. Don't like him.
Never
No.
made any like good catches or anything like
Yeah,
that.
never like
Swayed
kind of towed the
rankings.
sideline and
Yeah.
broke a tackle into the end zone.
Yeah.
Ruin a team's chances for a national title. Never did anything like that.
he didn't ruin. Oh God, you know what? Colt McCoy was my favorite quarterback back then too.
Were you
As he
just
should
like
be.
axed as a Baylor person?
No. I was in high school, man.
Oh, true.
At the
I was
time,
in high
Baylor
school.
was
Yeah.
Yeah. So I grew up. I thought I wanted to go to UT. A lot of people don't know that. I either wanted to go to UT and go to college, or I wanted to play lacrosse at Harvard. Like those were my 2 like dreams, and wound up going to Baylor. And then my favorite college quarterback of all time is Colt Brennan of the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors.
Mhm.
Favorite quarterback of college quarterback of all time.
How'd he pan out?
But huh?
How did he pan out?
I think if he wouldn't have had that hip injury, I think he would have eventually beat out Jason Campbell.
Yeah, I feel the same about
not
my
like he-
career as well.
Huh?
I said I feel the same about my career as well.
Bro, if Whataburger
If I-
wasn't
if I-
a restaurant,
if I
I'd be in the
didn't
NFL
break, if
right
I didn't
now.
break my nail, yeah, I was just
If I wasn't 6 foot negative,
If
four, I'd
Hack, if
be in
Hack
the
went to
NFL.
my high school, I would be a 5-star. So
If no, but looking at these rankings, I'm I'm glad we didn't. I'll be honest, I thought we were coming into this thinking I thought it was going to be an all-time ranking of franchises, right?
that's
That's
for
where I thought we
another
were
day.
coming in. No, but I was like, I'm going to have to give the Cowboys so much more love than I want to in front of these guys, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
I was going to have to put the Texans at the fucking bottom, right? Regardless of how last year went. And
Mm-hmm.
so, but a lot of teams would have hated me a lot more. So I'm glad that you took that burden away from me for the day.
Yep. All right. I think that's it. Any final thoughts? Or we already made final thoughts?
No, I should be invited back to the pod more often.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. That's why I invited you a week after. Or
Yeah.
yeah,
Alex says we have a diversity quota that we have to meet.
yeah. So you got to come
So
in.
it's me and Miles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's what's it called? I think we should, if there's a way we could like set up like topics or something for people to vote in or send in
Mm-hmm.
and come in and just set like an hour and 20 minutes or an hour and 15, like 15 just to hash out like what's going on, like news updates or like what we think, and then go over it. That works too, right? So it doesn't always have to be tiers. It could just be,
Tiers are just like the easiest thing. It's like brainless type thing. So, but yeah, I agree.
no one's going to want to do it, but I want to do a rank of GMs. I think it'd be really funny.
God, that'd be so hard for me to do.
Not me. I've got takes. I've got receipts. I've got opinions. And instead of the Chad Pennington division, it's the Dave Gettleman division.
All right, guys.
Oh, and we can rank head coaches too. All right, later, guys.
I think that's it. Appreciate everyone. Alex, when you're watching this, at the end, hello again. You're a very nice man, and you do a lot. I'm talking about myself when I'm coming back clipping these again.
That's what I thought. I was like, hold on.
Happy birthday, Anthony. All right.
Give it a couple hours. All right, talk.